We've all been there before, shopping in the store or online, and you get to the checkout process and wonder, which credit card do I use? Well, one entrepreneur says he has a unique solution to solving that problem, how to unlock self-driving money. We'll explain. You're in the Enterprise Zone at the Nasdaq. Hello, everyone. It's Jabari Young, senior writer at Forbes, and you're in the Enterprise Zone at the Nasdaq MarketSite. And I am joined by a unique guest who has a unique solution to solving a very unique problem, Tikue Anazodo. He is the CEO of Kudos Technologies, a software company that created an AI-powered wallet, and he's also a 2024 Forbes FinTech 50 lister. Tikue, thank you so much for making the show, my brother. And please tell me I pronounced your name right.
You almost got it. You're almost there. Thank you for having me. It's Tikue Anazodo.
Tikue Anazodo. That's a Tikue Anazodo. I know I was always going to mess it up. But, man, thank you so much for joining the show, man. Again, a FinTech 50 lister. I was talking to my colleague, Jeff Kaufman, and he says, you got to have this guy. You got to talk to him. Very impressed with your Kudos technology, man. So appreciate you making the trip.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
It's a pleasure.
Yeah. First time at the Nasdaq?
It's first time, yes.
Yeah. How do you like it?
It's awesome. It's super cool out here.
Yeah, it is, man. I'm telling you, the cameras and all the lights and stuff like that.
It is awesome. Yeah.
You sweating like you're nervous now. I
mean, it's different. It's
different.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. Well, listen, we're here, man. So you got to give me a stock, right? What's worked well for Tikue Anazodo, right?
Yes,
I said it right that time.
You said it right.
I said it right. There you go.
Yes.
I know I was gonna get it. Give me a stock.
With stocks, I'm kind of a picks and shovels kind of person. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of money going into AI right now. A lot of that money goes to NVIDIA and the cloud providers, Amazon, Google. So I think that's really where I put my money.
Yeah. Can't go wrong with those tech stocks.
Can't go wrong,
NVIDIA. Yeah, love that, man. What's your soundtrack, man, to 2025? Like, what's been keeping Tikue motivated and positive, especially because, again, you're running this startup company in Kudos, right? I mean, so you have to have something that's keeping you upbeat when you get the bad reaction to the news and all that good stuff. What's been keeping you motivated?
Yeah, I mean, like music?
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of Sade.
I love that.
I listen to a lot of Sade. It kind of just gives me a lot of calm because I feel like I live in chaos, and Sade just calms me down.
Yeah, man. Sade, I'm loving you said that. You're 32 years old, right?
I'm 32, yeah, but I like the old school.
Yeah, man. Sade, ain't nothing like that, man. Let's say you walk into a fifth grade class and you have to introduce yourself, right? What do you tell them? And they say, well, what do you do, Tikue?
Yeah.
Like, what do you tell them you do?
I'd say I work in a company called Kudos. It helps you earn and save more every single time you spend money on your credit cards. And if you zoom out to why that matters, if you look over the last 20 years, there's this concept of the middle class squeeze where middle class incomes have grown a lot more slowly than prices have grown. And so every consumer really cares a lot more about how to make their money go further. And if you zoom into the American context specifically, about 70% or more of middle-class spend happens on the credit cards. Credit cards are extremely complicated instruments made intentionally complicated by the credit card issuers. And so Kudos helps simplify credit cards, makes it easy for you to understand how to maximize your rewards, benefits, credits, and all your spend in a very simple way.
Yeah, that fifth grade class are probably looking at their phones like, what the heck did he just say? I don't know what credit cards. I don't have that. You're talking to a fifth grade class.
That's fair.
You gotta walk in and you gotta sell yourself.
I guess if fifth grade class, every time you spend money, if you can make money back, that's what Kudos does. Make sure that you make more money back every single time you spend money.
Yeah, now you got their attention. Right?
Yeah.
Now they're looking at you like, money? What? You said money? I love that, man. Well, listen, jump into some news that is adults will understand this part of it, right? Kudos Technology, but based in Los Angeles, am I mistaken?
Yes.
Launched in 2021.
Yes.
Started with a seed raise of $7 million in 2022. That grew to $10.2 million by 2024. And at that point, you had about 150 registered users, I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And then you secured $20.3 million in April. So total to date, $44 million you've raised so far?
So total is actually 20.
$20 million you've raised so far?
Yes.
Okay, so not 44 million?
Not 44, no.
Okay.
So because we raised the $10 million, then we raised an additional tranche to that $10 million.
So is the $40 million maybe the valuation of the company?
So the valuation is 50.
50 million, okay, so maybe that's what it was, a
Yes.
50 million valuation. But again, 20.3 that you secured in April, man. So take me inside of that raise, man, and what are you going to do with these new funds to help continue to expand Kudos?
So the core is really, so team, we've assembled a really strong team. About a third of our company actually used to work at PayPal. And the other part is really just continuing to build a really strong product that doubles down on our mission to make sure that people always earn more money whenever they spend money. And then there is a portion of that that goes towards growth. So you mentioned at the time we raised, we were about 150,000 users. Now we have 400,000 members. By the end of the year, we want to get to probably about 500,000 total. And our goal is to go well into the seven figures, because to really make a dent on our mission, which is to unlock more financial prosperity every time people spend money on their credit cards for the middle class. We're talking single to double digit millions is where you actually start to make that dent. But we're really early in our journey, and the investments we've made, the money we've raised so far really helps us start that journey. But our goal is to grow into the single digit and eventually double digit millions.
Yeah. So how does it all work? Like, take me inside. I'm because some of your partners, Walmart, Priceline, Lowe's, you're still working with those, as well as Sephora, right? And so you still work those brands. So let's just say I'm at Walmart. Don't kill me. But I'm at Walmart, right? And I'm walking through the line. I get to the checkout point and I'm ready to use my card. This is where Kudos plays a pivotal point, right? Point of sale is really, really interesting, right? You want to make sure that customers complete that transaction.
Exactly.
Where do you fit in, and how am I interacting with Kudos? I got to pull out my phone when I'm swiping my card? How does it work?
So we have an ecosystem of, I would say, like partners. So we have the consumer who shops the way they normally shop. You go to Walmart, you add the Kudos extension in your browser and your mobile device, and whenever you get to checkout, Kudos pops up. If you are not in a partner store, it basically says, hey, you have these cards in your wallet. Like, you're shopping at Walmart, you have a card that gives you 3%, and that card also gives you purchase protection, and you have a $10 credit on that card that you can use at Walmart. Kudos tells you all that and helps you autofill the card details and make that purchase, which for the consumer gets you more value whenever you're making a purchase. For the store owner, like Walmart, it gets you a conversion. And so we now have about 15,000 stores in our Kudos network, where when you shop with Kudos, in addition to your credit card rewards, you get additional rewards from the partner. The partners give us those commissions because they help drive more conversions. And so, with an example, eBay is one of our top partners. And whenever you shop at eBay, if I was shopping at eBay and I went with the Kudos browser extension, I have a card that gives me 2% at eBay. It would tell me, hey, Tikue, you have the Citi Double Cash card that gives you 2%. It's the best card in your wallet for this. It also gives you purchase protection for this purchase. And you get 5% more from Kudos in the form of Kudos Boost, which is sponsored by our partners like eBay. And so you end up earning about 7% back for a $100 purchase. That's like $7.
Yeah, that's online, right? So
that's
it's a browser
online
extension. But if I'm walking actually physically in the store, is Kudos still able to help me?
So if you're physically in a store, the primary way we help you is with a feature called Cheat Sheet today, where if you open the Kudos app, it will tell you based on the store or category you're at where you earn the most money. We are working on features right now that use location-based technology to make a recommendation where, like, if you walk into a Walmart store, it pops up and tells you, hey, we know you're at Walmart. Here's how much you can actually earn with this card at Walmart. And also, you might be able to earn offline cash back. Okay. So we are working towards beefing up that offline story. Right now, it's largely through our cheat sheet feature.
Okay. Is there an app available? Kudos
we have an app.
Okay. So it's on the software. You can go on Apple.
So Kudos has two products. We have a browser extension on mobile and desktop, which shows up while you're shopping. And we have an app and portal where it helps you with offline purchases, but it also gives you these AI-powered insights that analyze your historical spend and shows you like ways that you could have earned and saved more money, even just outside of your credit card rewards whenever you spend.
What data are you collecting, right, from these users? Again, over 400,000 people that signed up, so that's a lot of data that's coming through. Which data are you collecting?
So when you onboard to Kudos, you connect your financial profile, which includes your credit score, credit history, which includes all the lines of credit that you have, like your loans, credit cards, and you connect your credit card accounts through Plaid, which is our secure partner. And that gives us a holistic view of your financial life, including your credit score, credit profile, and every purchase that you make. Nice.
I love that. But you're sitting in 2024, you said this on a podcast, but it says Kudos sits in a really interesting intersection of FinTech and commerce. Elaborate on that a little bit.
That intersection is because when you're shopping with Kudos, right, we are assisting you with your shopping journey, your commerce journey. But the reality is we don't just help you with your shopping journey. If you think about a company like PayPal, PayPal helps you shop. Kudos has a lot more depth of an understanding of you as a consumer. We understand your historical purchases. We understand your credit profile, credit history. And so our mission really zooms a little bit broader than your actual purchases, like that you're making in real time. We think that being there for you while you're doing the thing that you're doing, making purchases, helps us add value to you in real time. But then we also analyze your entire financial life to find more opportunities for you to earn and save money.
Just out of curiosity, so I asked ChatGPT, right? I mean, we got to start using this stuff, right? I mean, and so I asked ChatGPT problems with credit card reward programs. That's what I put in there, and I asked him to. It says, give me a list of things. I wanted to read them out to you and ask you, why should someone use Kudos when they look at these problems, right? Complexity and restrictions encourages overspending, the valuation of points, psychological traps. I found that to be very interesting. Psychological traps with spending and using money. So A, do you agree with that? And then B, why would someone, use Kudos? Because again, they would be getting themselves into this credit card rewards, which sometimes maybe not be as beneficial as, the companies may make them seem.
Yeah, and I think this is like going back to that, the thing you pointed out with $1.2 trillion in credit card debt. The reality is that one thing that we see as core to Kudos is that we generally don't want you to spend money that you are not going to spend. And so in the context of how you're currently spending money, we're not encouraging you to spend more money, but in the context of how you're spending money, we're making sure that you're getting the most out of that money. And when you are spending with a credit card, we want to make sure that if you're spending with a credit card, you're getting the most out of it, but then you're also not accruing costs and fees that you should not be accruing when you're spending with a credit card. The biggest reason to not use a credit card is if you're going to revolve balances. That's how the banks make most of their money. I mean, there's interchange, which is about 2%, but they give a lot of that interchange back to the consumer in form of credit card rewards and credits. But where there is a little bit of a trap is when you think about the near prime consumer who is excited about credit cards, specifically in the context of getting access to credit. That is not the best instrument to get access to credit that you're planning to revolve. And Kudos tries to also help you be smarter with the credit that you have access to.
Well, what is it, again, shopping behavior, right? You're seeing a lot of this data. What is the data telling you about what shoppers are, what their behavior or what their habits are like as we enter September 2025? I mean, what is the data saying about, consumer shopping habits now? Yeah,
so it's generally cyclical, like through the year, and that going into holiday season, there's like right now we're going into the back to school shopping season. So there's a lot of back to school shopping, and usually within the season, we also promote a lot of our partners to give you additional cash back. Then we go into the holiday shopping season, which is another big spike in spend. People start spending a lot more going into Black Friday, Christmas shopping. And then there's a little bit of a lull starting the beginning of the year because people spent a lot of their money buying gifts during Christmas. And then it picks back up again going into April, May, when people get their tax refunds and are trying to pay for their holidays and vacations. So again, it kind of moves in these ebbs and flows, and we generally try to make sure that as those ebbs and flows are happening, we're ensuring that you get the most back.
So you're expecting a very busy season coming up.
Yes, no, this is the craziest season for us.
It's back to school, NFL, right? Starting back up.
Exactly.
People be buying gifts.
People buy a lot. Like 100%. The next 3-4 months are the craziest.
Yeah, and Halloween, so I got the orange
exactly.
on. Yeah, okay. So, I mean, first of all, is the company profitable? And if not, when do you expect to be?
So we are not currently profitable. We're working towards that. We have single-digit millions in ARR right now. We have a big partnership with one of the 3 biggest wallets that you've probably heard about that's going to launch in the next 2-3 months. And so a lot of these things are going to expand our gross margin and drive us towards profitability, but we're not yet profitable.
2030, you expect to be there?
Before 2030.
2030, yes. Okay. That's a great sign. And investors look at that and say, hey, okay. Biggest positive surprise about running Kudos?
I think it's like when we started Kudos initially, I thought that we were going to largely aggregate our user base on the coast. That's the major cities, New York, San Francisco, which I have lived in both. And you find that a lot of people who actually get value from Kudos are in the middle of America. And for me, that was actually a very rewarding thing. I moved away from San Francisco about 4 years ago, and I now live in Chicago. And part of the reason I live in Chicago is because I think it's great to build a consumer business that is trying to appeal to most of America when you just live in the middle of America. But I think that was, for me, one of the biggest and most interesting things, that we're not just adding value to wealthy people on the coast. We're adding value to people who are really just trying to make their dollars go further, and fathers who are trying to make their income pay for more things for their children than their family.
Yeah. How about biggest negative surprise? Something maybe you didn't expect running Kudos, or maybe your customers let you know about, quickly changed, but biggest negative surprise?
It's probably that, like, back to that revolving debt, where a lot of people just don't understand credit cards.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of negative sentiment around debt, which I grew up in a country where debt is actually another thing. I grew up in Nigeria. I moved to the US in 2009. And in Nigeria, when you go buy a thing, I remember my parents going to go buy a car, and they went to the bank and got a bag of money and gave it to the car dealer. But in America, it's a debt-driven system. And that debt, sometimes, if you understand how to navigate the credit system and debt in America, you will be successful. But then the thing is, it does create this temptation where you have the ability to spend a lot more than you can actually afford. And that puts people in like large revolving balances. And we've seen that where people are trying to earn more credit card rewards with their revolving balances. And for me, that's a big negative that was not necessarily a core part of what we thought our mission would be trying to solve, but we've actually invested in trying to solve that because, again, there's no value in earning credit card rewards if you're paying the banks 25 to 30%.
That psychological trap.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you kind of tipped a little bit. Get back to that in a minute, but I mean, again, you made the Forbes FinTech 50 in 2024, and great. My colleague Jeff Coughlin puts together. But did that help you at all? Like, did it give you more credibility? Like, what does making the FinTech 50 does? Like, what does that do for you?
I think it does give credibility because I think when we're now almost like a 4-year-old company, and when you're talking to enterprise, I mentioned there's a partnership that we're going to launch in the next 2 weeks. A lot of those types of partnerships actually were legitimized by things like the Forbes FinTech 50 because people don't just see you as this random startup. They see you as a company that is potentially legitimate. And then when they kind of look under the hood at the core value proposition that Kudos is bringing to our members, it's a value proposition that has a lot of scale and a lot of value to a lot of scaled partners. So I think there is a lot of credibility that the brand brings to what we're doing and helps accelerate our mission.
Yeah, I love that. Well, again, taking a step back, you mentioned that you grew up in Nigeria. What was that like for you growing up in Nigeria before you moved to the U.S. in 2009?
So it was great. I think I grew up with my family. It was like always very supportive of everything I wanted to do. And I think the journey from Nigeria to New York was like, it was a big hop, like mentally. I came to New York alone. I remember my mom dropped me off at school here at Columbia, and she was like, "This is a crazy city. You sure you want to do this?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I want to do it." But I think it did kind of just build a lot of resilience in me. I went to a boarding school in Nigeria, and it was a lot more complicated than like what you would think a boarding school is. Like we go hear boarding school in America, and it sounds like fancy and posh and everything, but like boarding school in Nigeria was complicated. And I think coming to America, it prepared me for like just being able to think about being independent, like driving towards goals, and always realizing that there are a lot of obstacles. Nothing is straightforward. There's no straight path, but if you continue to persist, you can actually will what you want into existence. Like I mentally knew that I wanted to go to a school in New York, and I wanted to specifically go to Columbia. And I think when you think about it from the perspective of a 12-year-old in Nigeria, it's an unrealistic goal. I mean, statistically, but I think being able to kind of mentally build things into his existence and like work towards goals is something that I think growing up in Nigeria helped me with.
Is there any misnomers that you see? Because now you're here living in the U.S. and there's a lot of maybe images that we present in this country that may not be 100% factual in Nigeria, at least from a perception standpoint, right? And so is there any misnomers that you have about Nigeria?
There's a lot.
What is the number one thing that you hear, like especially that we get wrong about maybe Nigeria, a country where alone 300, 400 million people, and that continent in Africa is obviously exploding every single day. But what is maybe some of the misnomers you hear about Nigeria or see that we get wrong here?
Yeah, I mean, granted, the perception has actually evolved a lot since I moved into the U.S. I think when I moved in 2009, a lot of people asked me, "How did you get here?" And I said, I took a flight. I got here in a plane. But I think that perception, there was an initial perception, I think 16 years ago, where I wondered whether people thought we lived in huts.
Yeah.
But then I think a big misconception is that there's not a lot of economic development going on the continent. But there is. I think if you think about the last like 10 years, there have been a lot of unicorn startups, like largely in the FinTech space, that have been building and innovating in Nigeria, Kenya, and South Africa. And so there's a lot of innovation happening on the continent. And the difference between the innovation, I think, that happens in Nigeria and countries in Africa versus in the US is, I think a lot of those companies in Nigeria are solving problems at the bottom of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So things like, how do you make sure that people have accommodation? How do you make sure that people can sustain their lives? How can people pay in the most basic and simplest forms? And I think moving from that to, for instance, Silicon Valley, where people dream about the stars, like people are trying to fly rockets to Mars, different set of problems, but there is a lot of innovation that is going on the continent. It's a different type of innovation. And it's an innovation that's really targeting largely currently infrastructure and just bottom of Maslow hierarchy of needs problems. But that is the biggest misconception, I think.
That people are not thinking that this continent alone is evolving.
Yes, people are thinking that there is a lot of status,
Yeah.
but the reality is that there's so much evolution and growth. I mentioned that when I was growing up, I remember my parents going to go get bags of money to go buy a car. That is not how it works currently in the ecosystem, because there have been a lot of fintech companies like Flutterwave and that have really come up and helped streamline the way money moves.
That's right.
But again, it's like Kudos, we're helping people maximize credit card rewards. There's no such value proposition that makes sense in Nigeria today. But the companies, because it's just there's no credit system that is materially available in a way where banks can extend credits to people in an instrument where they can swipe every day. But the innovation that has happened is that a lot of payments have gone from offline to digital, which is a big leap, because it's not just a technology leap, it's also a psychological leap. You have to educate, like the whole ecosystem is still, a lot of the ecosystem still runs in these less organized, most Nigerians are entrepreneurs in some form, but it's a lot less organized in terms of the form of entrepreneurship. But then that is going digital, and technology is helping accelerate that.
Yeah. And then again, you graduate from Columbia University, where you got a degree, computer science, right? In
Yes.
2013. What's Tikue like coming out of college, right? What is your plan? You graduate from Columbia University, they give you a degree. I don't know if you got student loan debt, but they give you the big bill too, right?
Yeah, they always.
What's your mindset coming out of college, man? Where are you at?
When I graduated Columbia, I moved to Silicon Valley right after. And for me, it was, I think I've always been very grateful for the opportunity to have access to the type of education I got access to. And so going into Silicon Valley, my goal was to figure out how to unlock maximum value with technology for just people. And so I started off at Microsoft and then went to Google, where I was the product lead for Google Pay. Somewhere along in parallel, I had also started a few ventures on the side. So I like to tinker and just try to build things. But yeah, my goal was really, there's this whole world that is now available to me. How do I make sure I lean into this world, take it and unlock maximum value, not just for me, but for people who actually engage with products that I build.
Yeah. So how do you get into Microsoft? Do you fill out an online application, or you know somebody? Because I'm thinking that Microsoft and Google, that's just certain companies you could just roll up into.
Yeah. I actually got with Microsoft, I got an internship in my sophomore year. I got a random email from a recruiter, and the recruiter says, "Hey, we're on campus. You look like your profile has come up a bunch of times as a person that has potential."
Yeah.
I was like, "Sure. This is cool."
Yeah.
And so I went there, it evolved into an interview. I ended up getting an internship with Microsoft. I did 2 internships with Microsoft, and then I went on full time. And from there, I think I've always made sure that every time I get access to an opportunity, I put my absolute best foot forward. And so with Microsoft, I worked really hard, and I gradually made my way to, I launched a few things at Microsoft, and then I went to Google, where I had the opportunity to build and launch Google Pay's first online product. And that was also very interesting, because in parallel to building and launching Google Pay online, I also had a wristwatch store, a wooden watch store called Antique Watches. And we were using that as the test site for launching Google Pay. And I learned a lot about just e-commerce and payments, which for me has always just been a field that I've been very interested and fascinated in. And after Google Pay, I went to Affirm, the buy now, pay later company, where I always had this nagging feeling that I was learning about e-commerce. I was learning about how to make payments work better. But I honestly did not feel like I was building things that were consumer focused. I felt like I was only helping merchants drive conversions.
Yeah.
Because that was the goal in my previous jobs. And so with Kudos, those experiences made me really think about Kudos as a consumer-focused experience that was really consumer first, to unlock value first for the consumer. Everything else is secondary. Yes, we help our partners drive conversions, but it really doesn't start with that as the story. It's really, how do we help you get more from all your dollars, and then the merchants get conversions as a side effect of that.
As you're going through Silicon Valley, again, working at Microsoft, working at Google, building up your own credibility for what you can do, are you facing any pushback or any issues because here you are a Black entrepreneur that's trying to get money, obviously, for a startup you have? Are you getting any of that pushback? And if so, how did you navigate it?
I wouldn't say there's been nothing that has been a direct pushback, but then you always feel some little subtle things, right? You always know that sometimes it's easier for other people than it is for you. But I've never really let that be an obstacle or a thing that I spend a lot of time obsessing about, because I believe that I do have more doors open to me than many Black people in America. And I think my duty is to make sure that I lean into those doors and do the best I can, so that in the ideal situation, Kudos is continues to grow and accelerate and maybe becomes a public company. And that, I think, just makes it easier for the next tranche of people to enter the ecosystem. But I think people tend to, part of the reason why discrimination or subtle, direct or indirect, exists in Silicon Valley is because I don't think people have actually seen a lot of examples of success. And that's why I talked about Robert Reffkin, right? Because you see Robert Reffkin take Compass from an idea to a public company, and he's a smart Black entrepreneur. What we need to do, and which is part of what I think my goal is to have more of those examples out there, so that when an investor is sitting at the other side of the table talking to a Black entrepreneur, they know that you can actually build something that is meaningful and big.
Yeah, because Tikue has done it.
Yes,
with Kudos.
exactly.
Yeah, I love that. Challenges ahead, what will disrupt Kudos before 2030? Other than a bad economy and recession and stagflation and all that stuff like that. But other than that, what would disrupt you right now?
So I think bad economy actually tends to be good for Kudos, because it just means that more people are thinking about their money.
Right.
People actually think, unfortunately, about their money when things are bad more than when things are good.
Yeah.
But I think we also have larger competitors. I think of our competitors as companies like PayPal that have the ability, have 400 million users and has the ability to think about how to make.
Well, how do you compete against
better.
those guys?
I think the way that we compete against them is, one, by being nimble and fast, and two, by continuing to make the consumer our number one priority. I think it's really hard for a company like PayPal to pivot the way they think about value, because their value will always be to merchants. They do mention 400 million customers, but the reality is that their customer is the merchant for the most part. And so we stay very laser focused on that mission of unlocking more value for the consumer. And I think we do have the ability to move a lot faster than these organizations. So I've worked at big companies. I've worked at Google, Microsoft, and Affirm. And the thing that I've learned in the 4 years of building Kudos is that the version of me that was working at those companies was about 4x slower than the version of me that works at Kudos, because we think it and we do it. We experiment, we move fast. If we see a problem that needs to be solved, I don't have to go through 15 different executive reviews and things to figure it out. We just build it and launch.
Yeah, love that, man. Are you hiring at all? Because people out there got some college kids right now. They say they can't find jobs. People filling out 200,000 applications almost. And so, are you Kudos hiring? And if so, apologies, because they're gonna be flooding you.
Yeah. So we're not. The interesting thing with the AI in the last couple of months is that it has actually accelerated the productivity of our team.
That's right. Yeah.
And so we're probably going to go back into a hiring mode when we understand how much, what our cap is in terms of value unlock. But a lot of our team right now is beginning to leverage AI in a lot of ways that is accelerating their work and making them a lot more productive. So we're not actively hiring, but we will likely be hiring in the next couple of months.
That's interesting that you say that. I haven't really heard it from that perspective before, that maybe people are holding off on hiring until they find out where this AI productivity is going to come from for their current staff, and then kind of, go back and revisit after they find, because even at Forbes, we're getting AI lessons and, crash course lessons on all of this stuff. And I'm thinking like, man, this is a lot of stuff to kind of take in. Very helpful, makes your job very, very productive, and gives me some of my time back. But again, we don't know where that issue is going to be, where all these white collar workers who could possibly be displaced. But is that how you see maybe bigger firms looking at it too? Maybe not.
Yeah,
doing
I think the bigger firms are definitely leaning very hard into it. The two verticals where we are seeing the most productivity, and I know a lot of bigger firms are in developer productivity, so writing code. So a lot of our entire team uses a developer tool called Cursor, which helps them write code faster and more efficiently. And customer support, where we have a lot of tickets that come in every day, and being able to automate some of those tickets in a more personalized way at a higher accuracy than humans is also a thing that we're seeing value in. But those are two areas where, in reality, we should be talking about how do we scale up the development team, how do we scale up CX as we're trying to grow to 1 million users, and as we're trying to unlock a lot more features. But we are seeing just like a rapid acceleration in our team's productivity by leaning into AI tools.
Yeah, yeah. Well, if you had to look at it, right, if you name, in one word, what it's like to raise money, especially as still a startup, what word would you use? Because again, right now, inflation is still sticky. People aren't just handing out money anymore. They want to make sure that they're going to get a lot of this back. You got to have a great business plan. What words would you use to describe what it's like to raise money now?
I'd say strategy and persistence.
Strategy and persistence. That was 2 words or 3, but
yeah, fair enough.
Strategy and persistence. I like that. Why strategy and persistence?
So the reason I use both of them, because on the strategy side, I think a lot of entrepreneurs kind of go into or in this motion where they go and they try to raise money with no strategy. And I think you have to create a process, and you have to define that process. So when you're going to investors, you don't just perpetually talk to people for 1 year in the process of raising money. You have to create a process and have a strategy, understand what narrative you're telling to the market, because you have to tell the market why your company is the next big company in your space. And you also have to structure a process such that people and the investors you're talking to have enough of a time sensitivity around the fundraise that you're putting together, because there's also the venture space tends to move with time as a strong constricting factor, and they also want to see how big the opportunity is. But then the persistent side of things is you do have to a lot of times do a lot of pitches to get your initial term sheet. The only thing that matters is getting your first term sheet, but you have to pitch a lot of people and hear a lot of no's. And if you're a person who is not persistent enough to power through no's, you probably give up at some point in the process prematurely.
Yeah, strategy and persistence, got to have that, man. Is that what you also would advise, entrepreneurs nowadays? Say if you're looking to start a company, make sure you have this trait. Now, I asked you how to raise money, having strategy and persistence, but what trait does an entrepreneur need to start companies nowadays? Again, in 2025, right, looking at where all this AI is going, and we haven't even started to talk agentic AI, right? That's a whole nother thing. But what trait do you want to see, or would you advise, young entrepreneurs to have when they're going to maybe try to start these companies and have these ideas?
It is very easy to have an idea, and a lot of people have ideas, but I'll still kind of go back to the persistence.
Persistence, yeah.
Because you can have an idea, you can even raise money, and you find that raising money is not the end of the story. You raise money, and now the bar is higher.
That's right.
You raise money, you're a $50 million company. The goal is to become a $200 million company and then a $1 billion company. And through that journey, there are always walls that you hit. So the Mike Tyson quote of everybody has a plan till you get punched in the face. And that is every day as an entrepreneur. You're always getting punched in the face, but you have to persist past being punched in the face. And so that is the one trait I would say if you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to start a company. There are a lot of flashy things that are going on right now, but being able to just persist, figure out what is your vision, what is your goal, and persist through that vision. There is also a lot of distractions that happen. So if you think about the last 4 or 5 years in venture, there have been trends, and the trends have come and they've gone. So like there was a point where crypto was hot and then crypto was not hot. There was a point where B2B SaaS was hot, then it was not hot. Consumer was hot, then it was not hot. Now AI is hot and everything else is back on the table. But then the reality is you also have to keep in mind that whatever is hot today might not be hot a year from now. And the companies that end up becoming materially significant companies are companies that persist through the downtimes and the uptimes. And there are times where you're going through a downtime, and the thing that you have to keep in your mind is that there will be an uptime. It could be a couple of months from now, it could be a couple of years from now. And the companies that are best positioned to really unlock the most value in those uptimes are companies that have been grinding through the downtimes for years.
Get you out of here on some fun stuff, man. You know, always started with the $1 million question. Have you ever made $1 million?
Not liquid. I like just.
That's
stock,
fair enough.
Yeah.
So you're liquid, not liquid. So you haven't spent the $1 million yet.
I have not spent $1 million.
Okay.
No.
Let's say when you do, right? Once you build up Kudos to be this, $1 billion company possibly one day, right? I'm speaking into existence. And you go to sell and you got your $1 million. What would you think you would spend $1 million on right away?
It's probably family related.
Family related.
It's probably not anything that crazy. I mean, I like cars and watches, but I think
you can spend $1 million on the cars and watches if you get enough of them.
Yeah, well, I think it's mostly family. I think my family has invested a lot in me over the last couple of years, and I also am going to build a family that I want to continue to invest in the long term. So it's really probably just making sure that my family is in the best position possible, both my existing family and my future family.
Yeah, respectable. Say the word. We just talked about it, but I'm going to say it. Agentic AI. I say that phrase. What comes to mind when you hear agentic AI? The ability to allow computers have no human oversight. They're able to do things the way they see fit.
Context is going to be the most important thing going forward. When I say context, I mean, if you're going to let AI do things for you, you want to make sure that AI actually has the right context in you. If AI is going to make a purchase for you, you want to make sure that AI actually understands your interests, your goals, and what you're trying to accomplish. And so when I think about the AI space, I think we're in a point where a lot of the big models have consumed basically the entire internet, and they have context in the internet, but they don't have context in you, Jabari, and what you care about and what you want. And I think the next phase of companies, which you asked me about, what does Kudos know about you? Kudos knows your credit score, credit history, knows things that you've purchased, knows things that you're actively looking to purchase with a browser extension. Agentic AI, for me, means being able to accumulate the right context so that you feel comfortable delegating decisions to software.
Yeah. But knowing it's going to make the right decision.
Knowing that it's going to make the right
based
decision.
off of my
Exactly.
preference.
Because if it does not make the right decision based on your preferences, you're going to not trust it going forward.
Yeah.
And so I think it's important to be right when you're delegating decisions to agentic software.
Context. So you're not concerned about workers being displaced due to the emerging AI? Because again, when I say agentic AI, you have people in call centers and things of that nature that these jobs can be replaced and that they're not going to have any jobs, or at least a lot of them. They don't concern you at all?
I think that there will be, and I don't have an absolute perspective on this, but I think if you look historically, a lot of the financial revolutions that have happened, there have been some jobs that have gone away and there have been some jobs that have come into play. And something that is kind of a little bit of a buzz phrase in Silicon Valley is just people managing agents. I don't know what within the context of Kudos, it is software engineers managing agents that help them write code. We do need fewer engineers as a result, or it's like customer support agents, like human people managing agents that can help them with 70% of the tickets. I think there is likely going to be a set of jobs that are created as a result of certain jobs going away. The thing that I don't know definitively is whether the number of jobs created will completely replace or supplant the jobs that are going to go away. Yeah. So there is some concern that is very valid, but I think the best that people can do is make sure that you upskill yourself in the context of what's going on. And for me, I make sure that is a top priority for the team at Kudos, that this is happening. Every company is leaning into this. We are going to be more efficient as a company, but the most important thing that you can do as an individual working at Kudos is make sure that you know how to use this software to accelerate your productivity.
Went to Columbia, worked at Microsoft, worked at Google, worked at a firm, right? I think you can answer this question like 100% accurately, right? I'm giving you all the confidence in the world, right? Biggest money management advice that you will offer someone right now, right? Someone that you love, biggest money management advice that you've learned over your 32 years walking this earth. What do you tell the next generation, the next young guy, the next young woman who may wants to replicate you, be an entrepreneur? What do you tell them about managing their money?
Say stay grounded, don't chase the flashy stuff, because the flashy stuff will come and it will go. But if you stay grounded and you have just some structured way of thinking about where value accrues, and that's why when you asked me the question about the stock market, my thought was like NVIDIA and the companies that you're paying taxes to that have the cloud systems. And I think always just thinking a little bit more grounded about where are things going to be long-term, where is value going to accrue long-term. And then I think a simpler framework is I generally like to invest in companies that have products that I use. And so if I find myself using more of a company's product over time, it just makes sense.
Yeah. Managing money, stay grounded, don't chase the flashy stuff.
Yes.
That's good. And finally, man, 3 books, right, that inspire you to perform or motivate your best, or motivate you to be your best. What 3 books would you advise?
Tends to be books that help me figure out how to not fall when I get punched in the face. And so the first is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight, the Nike co-founder. And it kind of just goes through his journey of starting Nike as Onitsuka Tigers, licensing that brand, and then basically inventing the concept of influencer marketing as a way to market Nike. The second book is Hard Thing About Hard Things by Ben Horowitz. It again just talks through like Ben Horowitz of Andreessen Horowitz and this company Upsware, and it was just a really hard journey, and he had to navigate that. And the third book is a book called 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel. And again, it just goes through the same kind of journey. But I read pretty much every single book about starting companies, entrepreneurs. And for me, it does just help me understand that whenever I have a hard hurdle to climb, that I'm not the first, second, or third person that's ever had to climb this hurdle. But the thing that matters is how I actually navigate and push through.
Yeah.
And that's why, again, back to persistence, I think is the most important thing. And those books really just help me visualize in story form what persistence looks like.
Yeah. Does it help you be a better CEO too? Because a lot of young guys, you're co-founders, you start as such and starters, and then eventually the board says, hey, we got to bring somebody in more experienced as a CEO to come run a company. But are you finding that it's helping you become a better CEO? And do you plan on keeping that role for for a while?
I mean, I do. I mean, as long as I continue to be the best person for the role, I will always prioritize the company, but I plan to. And I think it's a role where I am young and I've continuously learned. And I think as long as you just keep your mind open to knowing the fact that there's so much more to be learned, that mindset of persistence, I think, also comes with learning. And that whenever you get hit, you try to understand what did you not understand, like, and what put you in this position, and how do I learn in a way that makes sure that I'm better equipped when next this thing hits me. Yeah. So it is a continuous learning journey. And I think for the type of company that we're starting, I mean, historically in Silicon Valley, replacing founder CEOs has also just never has worked sometimes, but I don't think for the most part it has been the right thing, because I think there's a level of passion that I personally bring to, and me and my co-founder bring when we work at this company, that we are not going to quit because something bad happened, because there's something that we are really persisting to bring to life, and every obstacle is really just a learning experience.
And it's yours. Like, you create something yourself. You're like, yeah, I'm way more protective about it. And
Exactly.
Absolutely, 100%. I agree, man. Get you out of here on good to great, right? What is the difference between a good rewards program and a great one?
The way I think about credit cards and rewards programs is that you should always be able to earn significantly more value than whatever you pay for the product. And you should be able to earn that with the least effort possible. And the reason why that matters is, like, for instance, that there are credit cards like the Chase Sapphire Preferred Card that is a $95 annual fee card, earns you really good rewards, earns you a lot of credits. You don't have to do a lot of work. But for the most part, even without thinking, you could probably get $400 out of that card every year. So you're net profitable. But then there are some cards that get a lot more complicated. I'm not going to name any of them because we partner with many of the credit card issuers, but they're cards that have basically become coupon books where you're paying over $500-600 per year, And for a more experienced person with credit cards, you could probably get $2,000 of value out of those cards. But then for most people, those programs tend to not be good rewards programs because you're in a lot of times in deficit when you're trying to earn the rewards against those cards. And that's something where I think Kudos adds value in that for a person who really wants the prestige of one of these flashy premium cards, they might not be a good deal if you don't have the right lens on how to actually get the value out of them.
Yeah. American Express is good, isn't it?
American Express is good, yes.
That's the one I use. Oh,
Yeah.
Good, great. Kudos, and you say American Express is good, so it's Kudos blessed.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Don't change your mind on me and email me unless you say, man, I was lying. I didn't want to say them.
I mean, it does depend on your spend.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
For the most part, it is good.
I don't spend too much, I don't. I can't because I'm afraid about getting in that psychological trap. I've been there before, coming out of college. I mean, it's just a revolving debt. I don't want to go back there, man. So, Tikue, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate the time, man.
Of course, thank you for having me,
Chicago, man, and learning your story, man. It's been really, really quite impressive. Keep me updated, especially when you go through those next funding rounds. I'm assuming that you're going to be more asking for more raising later on down the line.
Yeah, in the next couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. So congrats on the $20 million that you did raise.
Appreciate it.
And come back and talk some more business.
Of course. Thank you for having me, Jabari.
I appreciate you making a trip from Chicago, man. Again, I know it wasn't easy, so thank you. Tikue Anazodo. I said it right?
Yes, you did.
Yes, I did. Appreciate it. Kudos Technology here in the Enterprise Zone. Thank you for watching and thank you for listening.